Hello everyone. In this session, we are going to talk about the Power BI desktop settings. To understand this, we'll go to the Power BI desktop application. After you have opened the Power BI application, you can go in the file option, and over here we have the options and settings. Click on it and then choose the options. Now we have the global settings and the current file settings. If we talk about the global settings, the first one is the data load. So over here we have some options for the type detection. So basically whenever you are loading any data set, it would be able to detect the type of that data. So here you can see right now it is selected to detect column types and headers for unstructured sources according to each file settings. That means that whenever we are loading any data set, there are some columns. So it would try to detect those columns data inside it. So if you are having a sales data, it will try to identify that it is a numerical data. If you are having any data which is consisting of the customer names, for example, so it will try to identify that it is a string data or the text data. Then over here we have always detect the data. Then we have the never detect the data. So you can choose any option as per your need. Then we have the background data option, which is basically including that allow the data previews to download in the background. Now this would be consuming some more memory as it is allowing the data previews to download in the background. So you can work on it and in the background it is trying to download it. Then the next one is related to the file settings. So if that particular file has been set to download the data in the background, it would use it, or else if the file setting is not as per that need, so you can skip that. Then the next option is to never allow it. So right now I will keep it as for per file settings. Also in the type detection, it is to the per file settings. So if you have chose that option for any specific file, it would not try to detect it or try to detect it. Then we have the parallel loading of tables. So over here, how many maximum simultaneous tables can be loaded? So over here, I have the option of 8. And if you click over here in the info option, it is telling you that the default minimum is 8 and it does not recommend going above the 30 limit. This is because you can use above 30 also, there is no problem. But this is because the memory consumption is more whenever you are trying to load simultaneously more tables. Again, you can see over here that the maximum memory used per simultaneous evolution is set to 432 MB. If you again click over here, it will tell you that the default value is 432 and it doesn't recommend going above 902 MB, because if you just give it a higher value and if you are working on a system with lower RAM, so it can create some troubles because your computer applications would not be able to perform in a way they should, because it would be allocating that complete memory to loading that tables. Then over here we have the time intelligence feature, which is basically creating some time intelligence date and data types in the background. So it would not show you, but it is still trying to calculate it based on the type of file that we have. If you want to turn it off, you can just uncheck this button. Then over here you can see how much cache memory is in used. If you want to reset it, you can just clear it, or if you want to allow a maximum memory, you can also input over here, so it would consume that memory in the cache option. Then for the Q&A, it is describing how much memory is currently in use and also how much memory is the maximum limit set to, so it is shown over here. If you want to clear the cache, you can clear it with the help of this option. So I can clear this, and now that particular memory is no longer allocated to our Q&As. The next option is for the Power Query Editor. So here, whatever settings you want to do in the Power Query Editor, you can control it with this particular tab. So we have some options related to the layout, related to the data import and the data preview. If you want to see the data preview in any specific format, it can show you that. Then you have the parameters and the formula bars. So the formula bars you must have seen when we were trying to create any calculated fields. So we were seeing that formula bar. So if you want to show it, you can enable or disable this option. Then we have the direct query option, which would be basically treating the SAP HANA as a relational data source. So right now we haven't connected any. Then the next one is for the R, create some visuals. We haven't done too much calculation on the top of it, but still if you want to use the R or Python language, you can use these two options. If I go in the R scripting, the first one is detect R home directory. So if you have R installed, you can set a home directory over here And also, if you are not having that installed, it would give you the instructions on how to install it. So you can click on how to install it, and it would open a new page in the web browser where you would be provided with step by step info on how to download it. If you are using any ID to use R, you can also select that ID from over here. If you are not able to find it over here, then you can browse your directory and you can give the specific file over here. So that, let's say if you are using any navigator or any other ID, you can specify the position of it. Also, if you want to change the temporary storage location, you can click over here and it would then give you the option of changing the location of temporary files for R. Then we have the Python scripting. Again, if you have any file or any Python installed, so you can select the option from over here and you can provide the directory. Also, if you are not having Python installed, you can find the info over here. Then again, if you are having any ID which is running R or Python, you can select the options from over here. And then we have the option of changing the temporary storage locations. Then we have the security wise information. So over here, the first one is that require user approval for new native database queries. If you uncheck it, it will not ask for any user approval. Then we have the certificate revocation. So these are useful when you're working with an organization or in your company. If you are applying any security to your data sets or databases, this is very important to note down. Then whenever you are loading the web previews, what kind of warning do you want it to give? Moderate, strict, or none? Then we have the data extension options and the security settings related to the custom visuals. Also, if you want to use the ArcGIS for Power BI, which would be basically used for creating maps visuals, you can click on it. If you don't want to use it, you can turn it off. And also we have the other map and field map visuals. So you can see we have these options of map and field map. If you don't want to use it, you can just uncheck it. Also, if you want to authenticate your browser over here, you can use default web browser also over here. If you want to use any web browser, you can just uncheck this option. Then we have the privacy option. Now, if you talk about this privacy option, you are applying some row-based security levels and the other security measures to different databases. If you want to control these settings, you can go in the securities and privacy options. So in the privacy, first of all, we have always ignore privacy level settings. It would ignore everything. Or combine the data according to each file's privacy level settings. That means that whatever file is there and the privacy setting for a specific file is given, it will try to identify those. Then the next one is always combine. Now it would not try to consider that which particular file is having it or not having it. It was always try to combine the data according to that privacy settings. Then we have some regional settings. So these are some of the global settings. Now we will come to the regional settings over here. In this, we have the application language setting. So that means the application that you are using currently is having English. But if you want to change this language, you can use the option over here and you can select any language. Then the model language is there. So the data set also you are loading over there. So you want to change the languages related to those functions. You can select the language over here also. Then the query steps is there. So again, if you want to apply any other language apart from English, you can select this use application language. And whatever system language would be there, it will try to identify those languages. Then we have some option related to updates, which would be basically notifying you whenever update is coming. Then we have the usage diagnostics. So if you want to send this data to improve the Power BI settings, what is the behavior of your usage, all these things can be done from this option. Then the diagnostic option is given. If you are facing any trouble using the Power BI or your version is outdated, you want to check those things, you can see the version from over here, and also you can use the diagnostic settings over here. We have already talked about the diagnostics options when we were over here in the optimize. So all these things can be controlled from this part. What are the options that would be showing over there? Then we have the preview features. Now this is an interesting part. So whenever Power BI update is launched, they try to release some of the preview features. If you want to use these preview features, you can select the options from over there. Now these preview features can become permanent options in the upcoming updates, or they may be temporarily be available in some of the particular versions. So all these can be handled from this part. Then we have the option related to save and recover. So if you want to auto save a file after a certain interval of time, you can give the interval of time over here. Also, in some of the cases where you can lose the power or suddenly the laptop crashes, In those cases, it is very important to keep a backup of your file so you don't lose any data. So you can keep the last recover file over here. So whenever the laptop crashes or there is a power supply interruption and you open the Power BI again, it would show you the temporary file, and you can try to save that file or you can try to proceed with that file. Now, where would this file be saved? So you can specify a default location for that also. Over here we have open auto recovery folder. So you can find the files over there in the recovery folder. Then we have the report settings options. So the visual options and suggesting a visual or the page alignment option, formatting the panes options can be found over here. Also, we can see the startup options over here. So whenever we open the Power BI, we see some home screen. So that can be controlled from this part. If you don't want to see it, you can just uncheck it. Then we have the Copilot preview. So Windows has recently launched this feature where in the Microsoft applications there is this Copilot feature, which is basically using AI inside your Microsoft apps. So you can select this preview over here. If your particular version is supporting that, you can always use it. So these were some of the global and region settings. Then we have the settings related to the current file. In this, first we have the data load settings. So again, what I was talking about in this data load settings, this would be similar to this data load, but this would be only for your respective data set that you are using currently. So again, we have the parallel loading of tables, type detection. If you want to detect the relationship or not, whenever you are doing some data modeling, this would be very handy. Then if you want the users to use Q&A on the top of your dataset, you can use this Q&A option over here. In this also we have the regional settings where you can change the language. Then we have the privacy option. Again, this privacy option is similar to this one, but it is only related to your specific dataset or the current file. Then we have the auto recovery option. Over here you can disable or enable the auto recovery for your file. Then we have the option of publish semantic models. So we have already seen some semantic models when we were working with the Power BI services. So those things can be found over here. Then we have the query reduction option over here, which is basically giving you the option of the filters. So the filters options can be controlled over here, where you want to apply the filters instantly or you want to add an apply button over here. So sometimes whenever I'm selecting a filter, I'm not getting that apply option and the filters are automatically being applied. So if you want to turn those options on, you can use this option and it would apply or add an apply button to all the filters. Or you want to add a apply button to a single one, like for example, here is this OK option. So when I click on this OK, all the settings that I currently made are saved. So if you want to do something of similar kind where you want to work with multiple filters and you only want one apply option, you can also create that. Then the last one is the report setting options, which is basically again similar to the report settings over here. So you can choose to make some changes in the global option or the current file. It is depending on you. If you are using any current file options over here, remember the options that we were finding over here, like for example, the type detection. And over here we have the option which is related to each file settings. These would come into play because they would try to detect that what the user has done in the current file settings and it would try to read in the global settings. But if you choose any other options, it would not take the current file settings into considerations wherever you are finding the options to each file settings. This was all for Power BI desktop settings. In the next session, we'll be talking about some different elements of Power BI. Thank you.